Many are dead in the latest mass shooting in America.
Exchanging shots with him. He's in a classroom.
This time, a community college in Oregon. Also tonight, Category 4 Joaquin batters the Bahamas, and there's been an important change in the hurricane's direction. And Russian warplanes bombed Syria for a second day. These targets included U.S.-supported rebels.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Oregon's Attorney General says at least 13 people were killed today and 20 wounded when a gunman opened fire in southwestern Oregon. It happened on the campus of Umpqua Community College in Roseburg, 180 miles south of Portland. The shooter, a 20-year-old man, is dead. This is the fifth mass shooting to lead this broadcast since June, and Ben Tracy begins our coverage.
This is for an active shooter at UCC.
The first call came in at 10:38 this morning. An active shooter on the campus of this Southern Oregon Community College.
Somebody is outside one of the doors, shooting through the door. There is a female in the computer lab. We do have one female that has been shot at this time.
Students say the gunfire lasted for at least a minute as officers arrived on scene.
Exchanging shots with him. He's in a classroom on it's going to be the southeast side of St. Paul.
And then silence.
The suspect is down. We've got multiple gunshot wounds. We're going to need multiple ambulances on scene. We have upwards of 20 victims.
Douglas County Sheriff John Hanlon.
The shooter threat was neutralized, and officers continued to sweep the campus looking for other threats.
With the 20-year-old male suspect now dead, officers searched students' backpacks for weapons and used dogs to check cars in the parking lot. Lacey Gregory was just 100 yards away when the gunfire started.
All I saw was my friend Alex. He apparently ran up from the smoke shack past the shooting that was happening up into the library to let us know that what was going on was real, and it was indeed. People were getting shot, and I saw people running from the English Hall across the courtyard towards every direction. It was crazy.
Authorities believe shots were fired both inside Snyder Hall and the nearby science building on the campus of more than 100 acres. Students inside the school tweeted as the shooting happened, one saying, "Students are running everywhere, holy God," and then "Scariest thing I've ever experienced." Students were evacuated on school buses to a local fairgrounds where they were reunited with their loved ones. The former president of this community college says the college only has one security officer on duty at a time, and that person is not armed. Scott, in Oregon, students with the proper permits are allowed to carry firearms on the campuses of public colleges and universities.
Ben Tracy reporting tonight. Thank you, Ben. And just a few minutes ago, President Obama had this to say.
Somehow this has become routine. The reporting is routine. My response here at this podium ends up being routine. The conversation in the aftermath of it, we've become numb to this. We talked about this after Columbine and Blacksburg, after Tucson, after Newtown, after Aurora, after Charleston. It cannot be this easy for somebody who wants to inflict harm on other people to get his or her hands on a gun.
President Obama tonight. Joining us is Kenny Ungerman, a witness to the shooting. Mr. Ungerman, what did you see?
What I saw was I was outside Center Hall in the parking lot talking to a National Guard recruiter that I've known for a few years. We heard a shot go off. We looked up, we saw what looked like a gunman going around the corner into Snyder Hall, in which we heard multiple shots go off and people screaming and running away from Snyder Hall, that's when we dropped behind my Jeep.
Snyder Hall being a building where there are a number of classrooms.
Correct. That's I was actually in the Snyder Hall before the event happened in a writing class.
What happened next?
After we heard the gunshots, we heard people screaming. We got up, told some people to get in their cars and get out of there. And then I got in my Jeep. We drove down the road a little bit, got out, and stopped cars from coming into the campus and turned them around.
Mr. Ungerman, I understand that you're a veteran. Can you give us an idea of what the gunfire sounded like to you?
It sounded like a small caliber handgun, anywhere between a 9mm and a .45. It wasn't definitely not loud enough to be an assault rifle, in my opinion. So I believe it was a small caliber handgun.
Did you see the wounded?
I did not see any wounded. I was blocked by the building itself since I was in the parking lot, but I did hear people screaming and people were running from the building.
As people were running from the building, what did you see? I understand all the classrooms actually open to the outside.
Correct. It's an open hallway, and all the classrooms have glass doors and glass windows. Well, the doors aren't glass, but the windows are glass. And I saw a bunch of people running out of the hallway, going up towards the library, and that's when I got up and got my Jeep and got out of there as fast as possible, and then decided to try to help and make sure cars didn't go into campus.
The people who were running out, what were they saying?
I just heard a few people saying, he has a gun, he's shooting, get out of here. This is real.
Kenny Ungerman, an eyewitness to the shooting today, thank you very much. Now, we have just contacted the hospitals involved. We're told that there are 13 patients hospitalized. We do not have their conditions at this hour. Each mass shooting brings new calls for tougher gun laws, and our Nancy Cordes has been looking at this story on Capitol Hill.
We extend our sympathy and best wishes.
Sympathy and best wishes are about all that the victims' families can expect from Congress, which has not seriously debated strengthening gun laws since 2013, after 20 children and 6 adults were killed at Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut. But even then, the Senate easily defeated legislation that would have increased punishment for gun trafficking and expanded background checks, something 88% of Americans say they support. The loss left the bill's mostly Democratic backers pessimistic. Democratic leader Harry Reid.
Do you intend to bring gun control legislation back up?
I would love to bring it back up, but I can't do it till I have the votes.
And he has even fewer votes today. Democrats lost control of the Senate in 2014 and can't reintroduce bills to close the gun show loophole, block more of the mentally ill from buying guns, or restrict the use of high-capacity magazines. And so when 12 were killed at D.C.'s Navy Yard and 9 in a Charleston church, almost all the talk of gun laws came from the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue.
This type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries.
Congressional Republicans have long argued felons will find a way to get guns, no matter what the laws say. Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
And we should not target our efforts to needlessly restricting the constitutional liberties of law-abiding citizens.
And the National Rifle Association spends tens of millions of dollars backing candidates who share that view. Despite those polls, Scott, that show an overwhelming majority of Americans are open to some changes to gun laws.
Nancy Cordes on Capitol Hill. Nancy, thank you. According to the website shootingtracker.com, there have been 294 mass shootings in the first 274 days of this year, including 9 murdered at a black church in Charleston, 5 U.S. servicemen killed in Chattanooga, 3 dead, 9 injured at a movie theater in Louisiana, and the fatal shootings of 2 journalists in Virginia. We do not know the motive of today's shooting, but most often mental illness is involved in these mass shootings. So we brought in our Dr. John LaPook. And John, what's being done in this country about mental illness and mental health?
Scott, we know when it comes to mental illness, early intervention works. It just works. But the big problem in the U.S. and elsewhere is access to care. So too often, a pediatrician or a school or a family identifies somebody at risk, and then it's months and months before they can get to a child psychiatrist, an adolescent psychiatrist. Well, there's a pilot program at Children's National Medical Center in DC. It started in May. And what they do is they're training the pediatricians, they're training the schools to evaluate those kids via telemedicine, via the phone, and it turns out that only 10% of the time do those kids then need to be seen face-to-face by the psychiatrist. What this does is remove the bottleneck, and these children have been evaluated much more quickly. Now, there are a total of 17 such programs in the United States right now, relatively small pilot programs, but the idea here is early intervention, increase access to care, and maybe treating them earlier will make a big difference.
Dr. John LaPook. John, thank you very much. In another major story that we're following tonight, Hurricane Joaquin strengthened to a Category 4 with winds of 130 miles an hour. It is moving slowly through the Bahamas, where some of the less populated islands are getting hammered. 10 to 15 inches of rain expected. Waves are running up to 10 feet above normal. So far, no injuries reported. Late today, there was a major change in the direction of the hurricane, so let's bring in Lonnie Quinn, the chief weathercaster at our New York station WCBS. Lonnie, what's new?
Okay, a lot of changes from when we were talking about this yesterday. Now, if you take a look at the 5 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center, we still have a Cat 4 hurricane. This is a big storm, 130-mile-per-hour winds, but it's all about where this storm is going. And as of yesterday, we're starting to see a trend now pushing it further and further to the east. This is yesterday. We thought for sure going into North Carolina, maybe Virginia. Well, as of today, look at this morning. They now have that cone huge anywhere from South Carolina to Massachusetts because we didn't know exactly where it was going. The models were not in consensus. Well, now we continue to push it further to the east, and now it's a Cat 2 on Sunday, somewhere off the Outer Banks, but not even putting the Outer Banks in that cone for a landfall. And then you get to sometime on Monday, even possibly into Tuesday. Here it is, offshore of our area, the skinny red line not making a landfall, but the cone of concern still includes the Northeast, so you cannot let your guard down just yet. Scott?
But Lonnie, if the hurricane does not make landfall, what are the effects likely to be anyway?
Look, you're going to feel this hurricane. It's got a huge water plume to it, so you're going to pick up a lot of rain, and places that have been just saturated already. We're talking Virginia, we're talking North Carolina. I think they could end up picking, potentially, associated with this storm, double-digit rainfall amounts. So flooding is going to be a problem, coastal erosion as well.
Lonnie Quinn, WCBS. Thank you, Lonnie. As Lonnie said, much of the East Coast can't handle any more rain. Spartanburg, South Carolina was swamped overnight. One woman drowned in her car. Several other drivers had to be rescued. Cars at a dealership were tossed around before the floodwaters receded. It has now been 1,506 days since President Obama first said that Bashar al-Assad's days were numbered as Syria's dictator. Tonight, Assad is still in charge, even after unleashing a civil war that has killed 250,000 of his own people. Now, Russia's Air Force is raining bombs on rebels that were trained by the United States. Here's Holly Williams.
Russian warplanes pounded Syria again today, targeting groups linked to al-Qaeda, but also hitting moderate Syrian rebels who are supported by the US. This video appears to show the aftermath of an airstrike in Idlib province on American-backed opposition fighters. Syria's deadly civil war is now even more dangerous, with both the US and Russia launching airstrikes, but supporting different sides. Russia joined the war, claiming it would target ISIS. Yet many of the strikes today hit an area over 30 miles from ISIS control. Colonel Abdul Jabbar al-Aqidi is a rebel commander in Syria's US-backed opposition and told us Russia could easily strike ISIS if it wanted to, but that its real intention is to defend the Syrian regime. They can destroy our cities, he told us, but in the end, we'll send them home in coffins. They're defiant words, but the rebels are under-equipped and vulnerable to Russian attack. Yet Colonel al-Aqidi told us he's given up hoping for help from the US. I don't think President Obama is sincere, he told us. The Americans let us down, and I don't trust them.
US and Russian officials spoke today in an effort to reduce the risk of an accidental collision in Syrian airspace. But Scott, the bigger problem is that Russian airstrikes on US-backed rebels have made the Syrian civil war more complicated and even deadlier.
Holly Williams for us tonight. Holly, thanks. The husband of one of the Newtown victims shares with us his despair over today's school shooting in Oregon when we come back. A few minutes ago, President Obama lamented that we as a nation have become numb to mass shootings. And though he said many gun owners support tougher laws, the prospects of that seem slim despite what happened today in Oregon. Jim Axelrod recalls what we've seen before.
For those wanting to see some form of federal gun control legislation passed, it was the shooting they thought would finally get it done.
I was in the gym and I heard I heard like 7 loud booms.
December 14th, 2012, Newtown Sandy Hook Elementary School, 20 first graders and 6 educators shot and killed by a deranged gunman armed with a Bushmaster semi-automatic rifle and a Glock semi-automatic pistol. Newtown families went to Washington to push for stricter gun control measures. Jillian Soto lost her sister Vicky, a 27-year-old teacher who hid some of her first-grade students in a closet during the shooting and died saving them.
I will continue to fight until everything is done, because if it's not in Connecticut, it's going to be somewhere else.
Nicole Hockley's son, Dylan, was one of those first graders killed that day.
Every night I beg for him to come to me in my dreams so that I can see him again.
Outside the chamber stood survivors of the victims, hoping their grief would sway the vote. Inside, Congress said no. Since then, we've seen 142 shootings on school properties in the United States. That's an average of nearly 1 a week.
That same sinking feeling in your stomach, and just incomprehensible that this can keep happening.
Bill Sherlock lost his wife Mary, the school psychologist at Sandy Hook.
These kids got up this morning and went out to school, and they're just never coming home.
So tonight, Americans are wondering what may come out of another massacre. Shock, horror, sadness, sure. But chances are, if recent history is any guide, you won't see change on that list. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
And we'll be right back. A big dig is getting underway in Poland in search of a mystery train filled with treasures buried at the end of World War II. Elizabeth Palmer is following this.
1945, a train pulls in, and soldiers loaded up with chests of Nazi gold. It's a myth so powerful here in southwest Poland that history buffs staged a reenactment recently. In reality, amateur treasure hunters Andrei Richter and Piotr Koper believe they have found a mysterious Nazi train. It lies, they say, 25 feet underground here by the main railway line on the outskirts of the town of Wałbrzych.
Is the axis of the train like this?
Yes.
It goes right under the road?
Koper and Richter think that once the Nazis had parked the train in the trench in the bank, they somehow covered the whole thing up with earth and then removed all traces of the track. The Nazis did occupy this part of Poland during World War II, and they had to retreat in a hurry as the Soviet army advanced in 1945. So it is possible the Germans wanted to hide something from the Russians.
You lay it down on the ground, and then you move it?
Richter and Koper's ground-penetrating radar machine produced an image that does look like train cars, with a cargo not of gold, but of tanks. The Polish government has gone ahead and had the site cleared. Now the army is checking for Nazi booby traps. And then what? Well, no one knows, though Richter and Koper are hoping it's not a bust, but a bonanza.
How much money do you hope to make?
$5 to $8 million, he says, as our finder's fee. That's probably a long shot. And yet some money is already flowing into the region from tourists who'd love to see a Nazi train, but for now will happily settle for the myth. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, Wałbrzych, Poland.
An update on the Oregon shooting when we come back. The search continues tonight for a possible motive in the deadly shootings in Roseburg, Oregon. A 20-year-old gunman opened fire on the campus of Umpqua Community College. The state attorney general says at least 13 were killed and 20 wounded. Police officers rushed to the scene. The gunman was shot dead during a firefight. Late today, a visibly angry President Obama renewed his call for tougher gun laws, noting that the U.S. is the only country that sees these kinds of shootings every couple of months. And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. For all of us at CBS News all around the world, good night.